Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to do some brand new music today, although I think today's request could also be filed under upcoming bands. I got to look into them, but I do see that they don't have a lot of subscribers and monthly listeners, so they're definitely on the smaller side, whether they're a new band or not. The band is called QUADVIUM. We're going to be looking at the track Apophis. This was shared in the Discord server, and between the thumbnail and the description, we're getting some bass heavy music right now, which I am definitely here for. Y'all know I love bass guitar. We should definitely have more of it. Before we get into this real quick, I don't think there's a warning on the video, but when I was doing the volume check, I saw a lot of flashing lights, strobe effect, so I'm going to throw that out there. If you have a sensitivity to that, don't watch the music video. Put it in a different tab or something. So let's dive into this and see what QUADVIUM is bringing to the table today. Was that a 6-string bass? Oh, those slides. I like the melodic drumming. Are there 3 bass parts? I think so. Oh. Interesting. Lots of ghost notes, very light cymbal work. It pairs well with the piano and the slight classical edge they've leaned towards. Oh, the syncopated movement into the super groovy section. The lower bass pausing at times. Yeah, dude, bringing that space in. Interesting layered rhythmic ideas too. Usually a syncopated part, something that's played a bit more straight, like quarter notes, and then usually something that's a bit polyrhythmic, dotted quarters and stuff on the outsides of everything. Yeah, dude, the back and forth on that. Dude, those 16. So good. interesting because there's a bit of suspension of harmonic movement. There are chords, but they're not following traditional. They're not following traditional functional harmony. So it's just like a series of chords with a slow moving melody on top. It just felt lost. Bringing back that melody. Oh, but not. Very stripped down, just the two basses here. Yeah, dude, that was cool. And a little synthy outro. I'll let it play. I don't know if this is just for the credits, but oh, I don't think that's a synth though. I mean, it could be. Could also be guitar though. All right. That was a wild track. I'm kind of curious what everything is happening here. The video only shows the two bassists, but there are a lot more things going on. There's also the drums, which originally I thought were programmed, but listening to some of the drum work in the song, but especially there at the end, there's a lot of nuance to the performance that doesn't feel programmed. I mean, drum libraries are getting, all libraries are getting pretty good these days. Maybe that was still programmed, but there's something about the cymbals in particular that sounded actually played to me, which makes me wonder if there is a drummer in here. There is a third guitar part. I don't know if it is a bass or an electric guitar. It never quite reaches the highest pitches that an electric guitar typically gets to. It could be those really high strings on the 6-string bass. There could also be octavers or pitch modifiers going on here too. Regardless, there's a third instrument that always gets layered on top of the other two. It becomes quite whirlwindy to listen to all three of these moving parts simultaneously. There's also the piano, which could just be digital synthesizer, keyboard stuff. And then the synth stuff at the end. There's a lot of things. Is QUADVIUM just the two of them? Is everything else programmed? Do they have guest musicians who did studio recordings of this stuff? I don't know. I'm curious. What can I expect if I dive into more QUADVIUM music? Kind of curious about all of that. Musically, though, this is intense. I'm not going to say that I followed along with all of it. There's definitely some parts that the sections were way overwhelming and went over my head, but for the most part, the gist of it was there's a hierarchy of ideas. There's usually a low bass. I think this is typically the 5-string bassist who plays a bit on the lower end and has slightly slower moving parts. It's not to say that they're boring. They're not just quarter notes, but they tend to fluctuate in speed. Sometimes quarter notes, sometimes even holding out pitches, half notes and whole notes, occasionally speeding up bursts of 8th or 16th just to create a nice little burst and then pull that speed back down and hold some notes out after that. It's very fluid, very melodically driven foundational work. Then there is the middle bass, which I believe, if I remember most of the visual components, is the six string bassist. It is still not a fully lead idea. There tends to be riffs or loops to it, and it tends to focus on tight ideas that work well with consistent rhythm. We will frequently see a series of eighth notes on this part. It is there to drive intensity and movement while still having pitched elements to it, while still being melodic. Above all of this, pitch-wise, will be the third instrument. And this is the one that I sometimes think might have been a guitar, but could also have been the six-string bass. We just never got to see what instrument was performing it. Whenever I listened to it and watched the two bassists, neither of them were playing this part usually. This was more melodic, more linear driven, much higher in pitch than the lower bass part, and kind of went with the lower bass part's composition style, though. Much more frequency of changing of pitch, of changing of rhythm. It had more movement to it, but also was not interested in staying with a static rhythmic element. This is your typical melody writing here. If the melody needs to slow down, it will. If it needs to speed up, it will. What's interesting is if you just listen to this part, you're going to get a pretty good experience with the song. This is the lead element of pretty much every section on this track. But I think what makes this so difficult to dive into is that all three of these lines are very similar in timbre. They're also similar in approach, that they're all focused on sort of a rhythmic element to the song. And when you listen to all of them together, it can become very whirlwindy, very difficult to catch a notion of where up is, where down is, where one is, what instrument is playing what part, because they do, as far as being segmented between lower range, mid range, and high range, there are parts where they'll kind of move, the mid will move up into the higher range area, maybe the higher range will come down, and they will meet in the middle there. It's very easy to lose track of who is doing what, and it creates something that constantly fluctuates between three distinct instruments and one six-armed monstrosity of a melody line of a song. And it's really tough to kind of figure out where things are coming from, where they're going to. And it becomes very easy to lose track of what's happening in the song. You can certainly just take this whole thing in and just be like, lots of bass work, and just to enjoy it on that level. But if you're trying to follow along with everything and see how all the parts bounce off of each other and play around each other and sort of move into their own direction and how they're independently working together, you can really lose what's going on in this track and become very confused about it. And that's where the whirlwindy part comes from. Sometimes it feels like you're in a tornado and it's just tough to get your bearings on anything. And that, I think, works generally. I kind of say that with a bit of bite to it, as if it's a negative part of the song. I think it's a positive part of the song. It gives it a unique identity, but for the sake of wanting to understand it, it does make it difficult at times. It's one of those places where a variety of timbres might help, and actually it does. When the piano comes in, that brightens up the song. It gives it some sonic diversity, but it also makes it easier to hear many of the parts separately too, where the third part now has a different timbre and it doesn't bleed into what everyone else is doing. But it can become very, very difficult to grasp everything that's going on there, for better or worse. But beyond that, it is still quite impressive to watch these people work, to listen to the music they're crafting. I think some of it comes off very rule of cooley. I have a tough time really emotionally engaging with this song. It comes off as something very much for the spectacle, not necessarily for the spectacle of it, but sort of in a way, yeah. There's a lot of genty rhythms in here, complex prog metal, riffs and playing. Harmonically, we kind of stick with a metal sound for majority of it, though we did dip into a quasi-classical sound at a time. But it's all very technical leading, where I think any emotional or narrative component is secondary to that, in a sense of what would sound cool next rather than where should the song go next. And it's basically a series of really cool riffs that they have bent in a way to fluidly move from one to the other. And I will give them credit for that. As interesting as each of the individual moments are in this track, they did a pretty good job of weaving it all together into a cohesive idea. It's not just 6 minutes of jumping between different concepts. There's fluidity to it all, movement. It works rather well. But if the idea here generally is spectacle, I do want to praise that for a little bit. The bass work is excellent all over this. I mean, whether it is the lesser complex bass line that serves as the foundation for the song, or the more complex midline, or the slightly more emotional or narratively driven melody writing that gets put on top of all of it, every one of these lines sounds great in isolation, but also when you bring it together. It doesn't feel like a smorgasbord of random ideas smashed together. It feels like three parts designed to be interlocked with each other. There is complexity in layering, complexity in rhythms, complexity in melodies, and certainly harmony, making sure that all three of these lines are working harmonically consonant with each other at any given moment. Even if one instrument is holding a note out, another instrument is moving between two tones during that one note, and another instrument might be moving between three or four. You have to make sure that there is a constant harmonic stability at any given beat, any part of a given beat. It is not something you see too often in metal, and I enjoy that, both from like a technical standpoint, but even a sonic one. The song just sounds great from start to finish, and like I said, it's just impressive to watch too. Both of the bassists in here, it's mesmerizing. I love that there's a music video to go with this because I really enjoyed seeing some of these riffs and how they're played. And I think it adds a little bit to my appreciation on the technical side of it, because there are parts in this song where, yeah, the complexity is difficult, but the individual lines don't sound too difficult until you see the kind of stretching that they have to do to get to all of these different notes on their instrument. So, and the complexity too of bouncing between different ideas on both of your hands, which the six string bassist does a bit more often. There's a there's a lot of stuff to praise in here, even if at the end of the day it's something that I might check out a couple of more times for a musician interest. I might even try to learn one of the part. Well, I can't learn the six string, but I can learn the five string part. But I don't know if it's a song that would stick with me. If it's something that after 100 listens, I'm still like, I need to go listen to Apophis. Because it just doesn't grab me like that. It feels, well, actually, a description I've used for other music is exercise music. This is a really good song to learn in order to hone a part of your bass playing that maybe you have trouble with. And melodic bass playing in here, there's so many, you can learn any of the three parts and probably get something of interest out of it, gain some knowledge out of it. It's one of those songs that I think is as a great learning tool. Which I think, I don't know, man, that feels kind of like a backhanded compliment too. Like it's not music, it's just an exercise. But I don't know any other way to really describe it. Like I said, it's kind of missing that part that draws me to it for something beyond the complexity and technicality of it. And so, I like to wrap these videos up kind of giving my take on the song. What is the music saying? I don't I don't really have much of that. My journey through this song was mostly trying to get my finding the ground and getting my bearings throughout it while having my jaw on the floor listening to the complexity of the ideas themselves. But The song doesn't really tell me much of a story. I don't get a narrative through it. It's just a series of really cool events, which is awesome within itself. Not everything has to be, high art with a strong story to it and being thematically or narratively compelling. Sometimes you can just have a cool song. And I think that's what QUADVIUM's Apophis is, at least to me. A very cool song with a lot to learn from. And maybe that's got to be enough for it. Or maybe for me. I don't know. How should I phrase that? What should my perspective be on that? I don't know. I'll be coming back to this for sure though. I don't know how many times, but I definitely have there's things that the song has left to teach me. That I know for sure. So these are my thoughts on QUADVIUM's Apophis. What are yours? Did you enjoy it? Is there anything that stood out to you? Do you have a different take on this? Maybe this song did mean something to you. Maybe it engaged you emotionally in a way that it didn't for me. Please put any of those and any other thoughts you might have down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, is a link for Linktree. It can take you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.